This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You're listening to the voice of Leyvon Miller. And today is May 10th, 2021. 41 years to the day of the sinking of the HMBS Flamingo. It is the incident that we now refer to as the Flamingo incident. I see my friends down at Coral Harbor Base have in their own fashion memorialized the men that have fallen, as they have done as oft as I can remember. But for those that remain, there are still lots of scars and there are still lots of memories. And although 41 years, there is still much of the story to be told by those who have witnessed it. There is much of the story to be told by those who have heard of it. And there is much to be told by those who watched as it unfolded. Among the survivors, however, some of them posthumously, you may know, but some of them still very much alive, are people or men of the likes of Lieutenant Commander Amos Roll, deceased. Mr. Anthony Allen, now captain, retired. Sub-Lieutenant Wilfred Sands, also deceased. Petty Officer Peterson James, now Force Chief Petty Officer, retired. Lady Mechanic Denzel Clark, now Force Chief Petty Officer, retired. Leader Mechanic Gregory Curry, now Force Chief Petty Officer, retired. Leading Mechanic Oscar Miller, also deceased. Able Seaman Trevor Sands, Marine Seaman Whitfield Neely, now Captain Neely, and Ambassador to Haiti. Marine Seaman Anthony Russell, now Chief Petty Officer, retired Anthony Russell. Marine Seaman Leo Kirby, now Petty Officer Leo Kirby, deceased. Marine Seaman John Wallace, Marine Seaman Gladwell Farrington, Marine Mechanic Eugene Thompson, now Chief Petty Officer, retired Eugene Blue Thompson. And of course, the names of the men that have fallen in this traumatic incident, the names that we should and ought not ever forget, the names that we must always remember. Able Seaman Frederick Stirrup, Marine Seaman David Tucker, Marine Seaman Austin Smith, Marine Seaman Edward Williams. Men that gave it all in the development, in the protection of the sovereignty of this Commonwealth nation. Today we celebrate 41 years. I invite you to join me. I'm doing this show this morning in their honor, as I have pledged to do during the month of May. So I intend to every Monday and Friday talk about the incident that we now know to be the HMBS Flamingo incident. We have already spoken with now Captain Anthony Allens, who would have been the executive officer and a sub-lieutenant on that vessel that day. We have also spoken to now Captain Whitfield Neely, who would have been, if not the most junior man, certainly only senior to his squad mates on that vessel. And we've spoken to now Force Chief Petty Officer retired Gregory Curry. And they've all given different accounts from different vantage points on board the vessel. If you've followed us any at all, you will know that Captain Allen recounts his story from being aboard the captured craft when the missile strikes took place. You will know that he was the man that gave charge and order to then Marine Seaman Whitfield Neely to get into a rubber-inflated dory while under active gunfire to rescue the lives of men that had no other choice but to abandon their ship when given the order by their commanding officer. You will also hear the account from Captain Whitfield Neely, now Captain Whitfield Neely, who is also the most decorated man in this uniform and is the holder of a gallantry medal and a traumatic service medal and a meritorious medal and a distinguished service medal. And he accounts for his time in the dory. He accounts for his time rescuing the skipper of that vessel, Lieutenant Commander Amos Roll. And he recalls what it was like having to do that and how it was all natural and just on impulse. Never one time considering not going to get his shipmates. And then, of course, you heard the story of now Force Chief Petty Officer retired Spooks Curry, Gregory Curry, who accounts for what he recalls gaping holes into the aft of the Flamingo, so big that water gushed into it every time the boat would rock. He recalls putting on a life jacket that never inflated, and it is because of an uninflatable life vest that he claims he is here today, because he recalls being in the water, in the diesel-stained water, having gunfire from the air blaze past his head as he dove as deeply as he could in an attempt to get it, seeing for the last time his shipmate, Mr. Frederick Stirrup, never to see him again. And there is something that I wish to put into your consciousness. I want you to consider this, right? Because we ask the question often, well, why did they end the search so early for the boys? Why were the boys so difficult to find? Well, if you have any nautical experience at all, you will know that these vessels were not at anchor. During the time of the attack, the Flamingo was adrift. If the engines were shot out, depending on what the current, the tide, the wind were all doing that day, by the time the attack was done, they very well could have been miles away from where the attack actually took place or from where the men actually got overboard. That is something that has to be considered. It is only a miracle that more of them didn't die because of the elements, the very elements of nature itself. Surprisingly, none attacked by a shark that we can account for. Surprisingly, none drowned, which is a testament to the swim program down there at Coral Harbor. But for whatever it was worth, if you consider the fact that they're in a vessel that does only 6 knots by the time as there is a muster done on the captured craft, if you consider the fact that for what I can imagine to be about an hour or thereabout, their vessels were all adrift. If you consider the fact that these men swam towards a captured craft, again changing their placement in the ocean. When you consider all of the factors involved, finding those 4 boys was a challenge that was immeasurable, I can imagine. If you're talking about being in the ocean area, that is Ragged Island. And so I think, again, it is a testament to the wherewithal of the crew. I think it is a testament to the command of Lieutenant Commander Amish Rule, now deceased. And it is for this cause that I again agitate that these men be given national honors on the national honors list, and that we consider at some point that maybe they adorn our currency for the sacrifice that they've given to service. The only battle-tested crew in this nation's history, 6 years and some silvers after this nation gained its independence, very shortly after the inauguration of the force. And so we're here to talk about that today. My numbers are 323-623-2325-4316, 325-4259. You can text me on 422-4796. And today, I am not talking to a survivor of the HMBS Flamingo. I'm not even talking to somebody that's ever worn the uniform, as far as I am aware. But I am talking to somebody that is, in fact, a historian and someone that is a keeper of the records. He is Mr. Arnold Wilson, and he has cataloged, believe it or not, almost every incident that surrounds the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And he was also very much alive during the time of the HMBS Flamingo. He recalls that day. He recalls what it was like as somebody that is interested in cataloging these types of stories. And I invited him because I want to now know, and this is what I want to know from you all. So I'm talking to people that are 55, 60, 65, 70. This is who I'm talking to this morning. What was it like on the day that is May 10th, 1980? Where were you? What were you doing? How exactly did you come to know of the information? And what was it like to understand or to begin to know of the incidents that had transpired at sea? So good morning, Mr. Wilson. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Now, I see you have an impressive catalog here. Yes. This is every story ever published about the Defense Force?
Every story that I collected. I mean, it actually was in the local newspaper.
Okay.
So whenever I see something that interests me, I just cut it out.
Okay.
So there might have been some issues that I missed, but it is very few.
Right. I see you have quite an extensive catalog there. So can I ask you, 1980, May 10th, where is Arnold Wilson?
I can tell you exactly, on 2 occasions that I can tell you exactly where I was.
Mm-hmm.
At that morning, I was in St. Mary's Church, Virginia Street.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing godfather for a friend of mine,
Okay.
Sparrow Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
Saunders. And before the service was over, it was whispering out through the whole church that the Defense Force was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that right to the date.
Mm-hmm. And so this would have been around about 10 o'clock in the morning. I know it's an Anglican church, so
Yeah.
it has to be early mass.
Yeah, around 11, because it was like I said, it was a christening as such.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it wouldn't have been an early mass.
Okay.
It would have been like 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock mass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mass.
So you hear it. How old are you around this time?
Well, you can do calculation. I'm now 68, so you can take it from there.
Okay, so you're about 27 at the time?
Might have been.
All
I
right.
mean, if you really work it out. I mean,
Yeah,
if you take the
because if
time.
you add 40 plus 27, that's 67 and 1. Okay, so you get the news. You hear about the attack on the Flamingo. Do you recall the incidents of that day, and what is the general mood around New Providence upon the message or the news of the Flamingo's attack?
Well, in my circle, it actually was shock, a surprise, because we couldn't figure out how it all started. Like, who provoked this? Who started all of this? That was actually the talk.
Okay.
So,
And
we just could have assumed that, all right, this was the case and that was the case, but there wasn't any concrete evidence.
and if I recall correctly, the Prime Minister wasn't in town.
Yes.
What was that like for people that were aware of that?
Well, like I said, in the circle what I was in, it's like he wasn't a factor as such.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what happened out there? Right? Because he could only gather information what is given to him. So
Sure.
and he wasn't even around at least that time.
He was in London.
to get first-hand information at that particular point.
Mr. Hanna was in charge of the country that day.
I think Darrell
Darrell Roll,
was the
Minister of National Security.
Correct,
Yeah. And then Mr. A.D. Hanna would have been the acting prime minister.
Right.
I remember they kind of clobbered him up and down in the newspaper during the attack. Do you have the clippings for that?
These were the things that I wanted you to give me a heads up on,
Okay.
so I can look for it. 'Cause like I said, this is something that you really could just glass through it and pick it up because it really
It takes a bit of time.
exactly.
Okay. So tell me then, do you remember the talk of the buzzing of Ragged Island? When did people in Nassau become aware that Ragged Island was actually still under attack by Cubans?
But later that date, really, because after they heard that the U.S. went down there, I guess we felt some sort of comfort that, all right, they're not going to fight them.
So you all knew that the U.S. were coming?
But at that time, like I said, this happened around 11 o'clock. So later on that day, then you were hearing that this what took place. The U.S. Aircraft went down there. So that was sort of like brought some comfort to us because we know that our defense forces just started, so we were in no position to say put up no big fight as such.
All right.
But why are we speaking about that? And there's two things I really was disappointed in. In this same incident with the defense force with the sinking, I went to Ragged Island like in 2010. And this, I think, would have completed the story because the police station where they housed them, they destroy it. All right? They break it down, and the only thing left was, I think, a Western wall, a tabby wall. I have a photograph because when I was up there, I take it. And I figured that should have remained.
The police station where they found refuge.
Exactly. And they break it down and they put up a new one, which has, like I said, the only thing was left standing right now is one of those boundary walls. Not even the full square. It's just one, I think, might have been on the western side. And like I said, I was a little disappointed, really disappointed.
Because it should have been archived.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a piece of history.
That completes the story.
Right.
And also, the Fallen Four, on the base itself, I think that really should have been outside.
You mean the monument?
The monument.
Yeah.
Because the average Bahamian cannot go on that base as they see fit.
Right.
So some kid who lives in the ghetto area, and they probably will never see it. They'll never see it. And like you said, like I heard you mention, we don't talk about it. I mean, as far as being educated about it, it's not done. And there's a whole lot of teachers, a lot of grown-ups have never really heard the story, and like it is just forgotten. And I think the biggest insult was when they had the election on that date.
Yeah, the last election.
Yeah, I think that's outright. I don't know, kind of respect.
It was certainly political.
It was political.
It was a political. I don't know what to call the word, but definitely not the best decision.
It was
ever
planned.
made.
You see, it wasn't an accident. To have it on that date, I wouldn't consider it an accident. It had been planned for that day. And if they really had in respect for that day, that never would have happened.
So you're a young man, 27 years old, thereabout, christening your, was it goddaughter? Godson?
Yeah, goddaughter.
Goddaughter at that time. According to you, the general mood of the people in your circle didn't really care that the prime minister wasn't here. Was shocked that the Cubans had attacked us. Wasn't really sure what was the purpose or the reason of the attack. Found out that the Americans had come to our rescue. They call it the greatest galvanizing of the Bahamian population, the attack on Flamingo. Do you remember it being that in your circle?
Mentally, yeah, we were just furious that, what could happen? What can we do? But it's like I said, it's out of anger, right? Because realistically, they can defend themselves. And our defense force could defend themselves in the sense that what took place.
Did you know any of the men?
No, but I became to know Stirrup family.
Okay.
quite well.
Fenric Stirrup is said to have been seen by Gregory Curry swimming towards the vessel.
According to one of these stories, and
That it was
like
the
he
last
said,
time they saw him.
and his last word was, "Oh Lord."
Yeah.
It's what it was written in the story also.
Yeah.
That's
That he got off the vessel. They accounted for him in the water
correct.
off the vessel during the shooting.
Correct.
And how has your interaction with his family been since coming to know them, coming to learn of them, etc.?
When I met the family, it was after the incident. It was like 4 years after the incident. Okay, so I didn't know him before then, but now we are neighbors.
Sure.
And you talk to one of the sisters, well, nephew actually, and he will give me his feelings about the whole incident. But we've never really spoken in detail because to me, like, it's a bitter subject. Okay, I mean, you don't want to keep reminding people of what took place to your family, your next of kin. So times like this, it'll be accepted. But other than that, you just don't bring it up.
What got you interested in did that then cause you to become interested in cataloging these stories with the Defense Force?
No, well, I have stories from '79 when it first started, when the Defense Force started to recruit, things of that nature. And when they had the first recruitment of the females, this is God's gift.
Okay.
I cannot tell you in detail, I know what was going on, this is going to be history. So it was kept, like I said, from 1978, when the commander was Swinley at that time.
Right.
All right. So if that's 78 and the incident taken in 1980.
Yeah, 18 months or thereabout.
Yeah.
So they had only been commissioned. I think the commissioning of the Defense Force took place on March the 30th, 1979.
It'll be something.
Yeah, and so the Flamingo incident is May 10th, 1980, which lets you know that it's very shortly after its inauguration.
Yeah, because they have a story where this was in July of 1978 when Flamingo and
Marlin
the Marlins
sailed from London.
Exactly.
Right. I think L.L. Smith, I think, would have been one of the commanding officers of those vessels.
You'll have to really read the story in detail, but I mean, I have a story when they were coming in. Like I said, this was a big deal because we first had some marine boats operated by the police, but this was a full-fledged military operation. So that's actually would have really been his story.
Yeah. I hear my music. That means I'm going to a break. It's May 10th, 2021. It is there that we recall the life and service and sacrifice of the men on board the faithful HMBS Flamingo. Their names will live on, and we must never forget. We must always tell the story. When I get back, I open the phone lines, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. I'm joined in studio by Mr. Arnold Wilson. He's a historian, as we recall the day that was May 10th, 1980, now known to us as the Flamingo incident. We'll be back after the break.
In life, there are always challenges. Today, we find ourselves having to be more self-sufficient, socially aware, and technically savvy. At J.S. Johnson, we are committed to our customers by providing cost-effective insurance solutions. No matter what your insurance needs, we will always be here for you. Call 397-2100 or visit jsjohnson.com. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
There may come a time when you are instructed to self-quarantine, but what does that mean? Someone who self-quarantines stays at home in one room because he or she may have been exposed to COVID-19. This person is not sick, but may or may not develop the disease during this time. This person uses a separate bathroom from others in the house. Only one designated person should provide care to the individual who is self-quarantining. During this time, no visitors are allowed. These steps are taken to reduce the risk of spreading the disease. Persons living alone who are required to self-quarantine cannot leave their homes. If there is a need for medication or food, a family member can assist. Otherwise, health officials and social services will ensure that persons' basic needs are met. Know the names and dosages of medications prescribed in case a refill is needed. A member of the contact tracing team will assess the individual daily via telephone. They will monitor symptoms and collect information. Let's do our part to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
This message has been brought to you by Bahamas Ministry of Health in conjunction with Guardian Radio.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
In peril. This is actually one of my favorite hymns, by the way. Just so you know, it's long, but it's nice. I see I've got some calls on the line, Mr. Wilson. Put those headphones on for me. Let's take a couple of phone calls. Good morning, caller. You're on. Caller, you there? Caller, you there? Let's take another call. Good morning, caller. You're on. 323-623-235-4316-325-4259. A text writer here says, was the vessel ever recovered? It is reported that the HMBS Flamingo was sunk somewhere in the area where the body of water was, I think they said, 3,000 fathoms. Is that correct? 3,000 fathoms? Or 6,000 fathoms. It's one of those two numbers. The point I'm making to you is 1 fathom is equivalent to 6 feet. And so you can do the maths. That is the non-retrievable. It is in a place we call Davy Jones's locker, never to return. Let's take another phone call. Good morning, caller. You're on.
Morning, Leyvon. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Good morning to Mr. Wilson.
Good morning.
I was 16 years old
Mm-hmm.
at the time when that incident happened. I was at school, Perkins School for the Blind in Watertown, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up that morning, turned on the 8 o'clock news up there, and heard an announcer from ZNS reporting internationally. So I was stunned, shocked, surprised, upset, etc., etc. That was obviously a tragic day
Mm-hmm.
in the life of our country. And a couple of things I'd like to explore quickly with you and your guest, Leyvon.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear all of your shows so far for the month on the subject because I don't much listen to the talk shows on Guardian Radio much anymore. So that's how come I missed it on that. So my point in asking that or saying that is this. Did you happen to yet discuss what the Flamingo was indeed doing when it was attacked?
Yeah, they were approaching. They came on a patrol out of Inagua.
Right,
Decided to go around the back of the Key Santo Domingo area.
right,
They got in the back there, spotted 2 vessels that they easily identified as Cuban fishing vessels.
that were poaching in our waters, right?
Right, and
Right.
and Captain Roll or Commander Roll made the decision to board the vessels. They refused
Right.
to stop. I think Frederick Stirrup is said to have been the gunner. The gunner was given instructions to take out the engines. He did.
Right.
They got one of the vessels to stop. Luckily, the other one stopped on its own steam because that vessel is how they were able to make it back to Ragged Island.
Got
Had
it.
they shot both vessels out, I don't know what would have happened to them all.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more tragic.
Yeah,
maybe.
that story would have gone entirely different.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to also ask for clarification, you guys alluded to it a while ago. I understood that a squadron of F-16 fighters from the U.S. based in Homestead, Florida, actually went down there, and they got down there in a minute, or those Cuban MiGs left a minute before those U.S. fighters got down there.
Yeah, I think it was Captain Neely that said the same thing. He said the Cuban MiGs flew over, and they kind of flew over Ragged Island all that morning.
Yeah, they were buzzing, Rugged Island.
Literally, as the Cuban MiGs disappeared, I think he says 4 white U.S. MiGs appear. He said you could tell the difference because the Cuban ones were gray and the American ones were white. So
Well, Americans don't fly MiGs, they fly F-16.
F-11s, I think it was, yeah.
Or back then, maybe, yes.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Thank you very much.
I wanted that clarification because I had heard too also that there were warships like crazy in our harbor from the U.S. and from England. Can any of you confirm that too?
I don't know, Mr. Wilson.
No.
No, he
It
doesn't.
wouldn't have been around that. I'm not as in. It
Not
would
during that
it would
day,
not-
of course,
yeah,
but
it would
within
not-
that month or
Yeah,
within that
it would
week.
not have been in May. It might have been
No,
in June.
okay.
Yeah, in July. Yeah, but wouldn't have been-
Understood.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Now, see, the reason I'm bringing this up, and Leyvon, you touched on it a bit, for two reasons. One, what is the name of that road that leads to the base, to the Defense Force base?
Carl
Coral
Harbor?
Harbor.
Carl Harbor Road? I suggest that be renamed the Fallen Four or the Fallen Heroes roadway in honor of those 4 Marines that lost their lives. And also, this is probably going to be a difficult second suggestion here because of the depth of the water. But, you know, if it at all is possible and if we can find any group of Bahamians anywhere on this planet who wouldn't mind providing the funding, if we could somehow raise the flamingo and bring that on land and have that as a national memorial, as a museum, marine museum to that tragic event, so that we could be visually minded of that incident. Because, I mean, like you say, it's in a very, 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 very deep water. But like that's why I say if it's possible, because at this point, gentlemen, I am honestly so saddened that Bahamians have not yet reached the point where we understand the value of remembering us as Bahamians. Yeah, our colonial history was what it was, and thank God for the positive things that came out of it, like the abolishment of slavery and those who fought to abolish slavery. But this is the time for Bahamians to acknowledge and celebrate our achievements, our sacrifices, because what greater sacrifice than that can anybody make for the life of their country than to sacrifice, literally put their life on the line?
No, you're absolutely correct.
You know, so I would honestly like to see, as a Bahamian, and believe me when I tell you I was angry, because after I left Boston, I schooled in Miami for 3 years, and I know one day in one of, I think, a math class or something, somebody was saying something. You know, a lot of Cuban students were in that class, and somebody was talking something and, you know, getting all upset about one thing or another, and, you know, boasting about what, you know, Cuba this, Cuba that. And I honestly got up as a Bahamian and I said to them, I said, folks, I do not hate you all because you're Cubans, you know. Because I think that's what the subject was back then. I think that was around a Mariel boat lift when I was over there in school. I simply said to them, you know why I'm right now angry at Cuba? It's because of the fact that Cuba attacked my country.
Yep.
That's why I was angry with Cuba, not because of them being Cubans, because the Cuban citizens didn't do that. The military did that.
Yeah.
So we in the Bahamas need to become just as strong and patriotic in this country about us, man. We got to stop rolling over and playing dead like these things don't happen or haven't happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So thank you for your time. And,
Appreciate it, JT.
And I will just simply say in closing, to the Defense Force, officers, gentlemen, officers, ladies, God bless you and thank you for your sacrifice to the Bahamas that you all give every day on the Defense Force, Police Force, and other branches of security in this country. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you, JT. And JT, you got to start tuning in to Guardian definitely at 11 o'clock. Leyvon Miller is live every weekday morning at 11. So that's the reason to listen, JT. Welcome back. Mr. Wilson?
He made a comment about some memorial that they raised that and put that, bring it online or such. Was it the last month a building was renamed or was named on JFK?
The OAT building, yeah.
Is that the building that's the military?
Ministry of National Security building, yeah.
That building should have named after the four.
You and I thoroughly agree.
Or if not, every room inside that building should carry a name of one of those fallen.
Well, I wrote a piece. I wrote a piece. It was published in the newspaper. You can go and see it. You could Google it. It's called 41 Cents of Sacrifice. And I still contend that I live in a country where there's a pineapple on my 5 cent, and I don't know what is the purpose of that. There is a starfish on my 1 cent, and I don't know what is the purpose of that. There are bonefish on my 10 cent. I really don't know what is the purpose of that. And there's a sailboat on my 25 cent. And as much as they like to say sailing is the sport of the Bahamas, the only thing I ever just go to a regatta for is for the liquid courage and the mamacitas, right? And so whenever I see these things, I cringe because I believe certainly we must have been or could have been able to rebrand our currency and put the faces of the four on the currency and then, or something, and then make that a way that we remember them. But also the Flamingo had a twin ship, the Marlin. We sunk that. I think that is an actual reef. It may be easier to retrieve the Marlin.
It's almost a replica, actually, of the
It is
Marlin.
the twin ship to the Flamingo. We should go and get that back because the Commodore at the time made the decision to have it sunk. I thought that was short-sighted, right? We should go and retrieve that because that is actually retrievable and polish that up and put it up as a monument. Because, I mean, what is the price you pay for history and for the ability to teach your own citizens, right? I see you have some clippings here. I thought this one was quite interesting. It says 5 Cuban military aircraft, which had buzzed Duncantown, Ragged Island for over 4 hours Sunday in an apparent attempt to rescue 8 Cuban accused poachers, ended their hostile actions when 2 American Scrambler fighter jets made an appearance over the southern Bahamian island, precipitating the hasty departure of the Cuban military, according to eyewitness reports. And 5 hours later, the British destroyer, the HMS Eskimo, appeared off the eastern coast of Ragged Island after the situation on the island had returned to normal, with the 15 survivors of Saturday evening's bombing of the HMBS Flamingo and the 8 Cuban prisoners being flown to safety of this capital island. It was learned less than 38 hours after the initial bombing of the Bahamas Defense Force vessel, a 7-man Cuban delegation headed by Cuba's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Pelegrin Torres de la Luz, that is quite a name, and including Cuba's ambassador to the Bahamas, Raul Raora Carui, arrived here on board a Learjet for talks with the Bahamian External Affairs Minister, Paul Adley, over the incidents of the weekend, which had generated a strongly worded note that was sent to Cuba on Sunday by the Bahamas government, a note which the government pledged to circulate among members of the United Nations Security Council. A Bahamas News Bureau statement issued late Monday stated that the delegation from the Bahamas Ministry of External Affairs and the Cuban Ministry of Foreign Affairs met for 3 hours during the afternoon. According to the statement, the two delegations discussed the sinking of the HMBS Flamingo Saturday by Cuban military aircraft near Key Santo Domingo, south of Ragged Island, and the subsequent incident on Sunday at Duncantown, Ragged Island, in which Cuban aircraft harassed the civilian population and the survivors from the Flamingo. External Affairs Minister Paul Adley and Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Pelegrin Torres de la Luz of the Bahamian and Cuban delegations, respectively, reported that the two delegations are to meet again Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Adley said that Monday's discussion centered around the facts of the incident and the Bahamian note of protest to Cuba, which requires an appropriate apology, a guarantee that there will be no repetition of such violations, and that Cuba henceforth would respect the Bahamian sovereignty and territorial integrity. He added that the Bahamas would so require repatriation for loss of life and property in the incident. Mr. Adley said he believes the Cuban delegation left the meeting with a clear view of the steps.
But also the values on the other side of the page. Would they value
Yes.
their
So
lives?
this story here is published Saturday, December 13th, 1980. I see the phone calls. I'm coming to them. Cuba pays $5 million for Flamingo and $400,000 for the men. The Cuban government has paid the government of the Bahamas $5.4 million, and this story is written by Athena Damianos. $5.4 million in compensation for the lives of 4 Bahamian Marines and the sinking of the Defense Force patrol craft HMBS Flamingo by MiG jet fighters on May 10th. The agreement, announced late yesterday by External Affairs Minister, Attorney General Paul Adley, ends months of negotiations for a settlement between both governments, with the Bahamas government yesterday receiving the equivalent in pounds sterling of US $5.4 million. Of the $5.4 million, $100,000 will be awarded to each of the families of the 4 Marines, and $5 million has been paid to the Bahamas government as reparation in full settlement of its claim for the loss of the Flamingo. Mr. Adley said that the ultimate resolution of the tragic incident was made possible in large because of the overwhelming support of the international community for the Bahamas. Under the agreement, it will be the responsibility of the Bahamas government to pay the families of the missing Marines, Frederick Stirrup, Andy Rudolph Smith, David Allison Tucker, and Edward Williams, $400,000 in equal shares. The agreement discharges the Cuban government from all further liability to the Bahamas government for the loss of the Flamingo and the 4 members of the crew of the patrol craft. The Bahamas tragedy occurred on the evening of Saturday, May 10th, when Flamingo, on routine patrol south of Ragged Island, sighted 2 Cuban fishing boats in Bahamian waters. The fishing vessels took flight and refused to stop even after warning shots had been fired. More direct shots, which the Defense Force said caused no damage, eventually got them to stop. Flamingo arrested the vessels, and while they were in tow to port, she was attacked with warning by a MiG-type jet fighter aircraft with air-to-surface rockets. There was also a military helicopter hovering overhead. The attack came in several waves and continued even after the ship had been abandoned and was sinking. The men were fired on with machine guns while attempting to swim to safety. 4 Bahamian Marines were unaccounted for. The next day, MiG jet fighters made assimilated rocket runs over Ragged Island, terrifying the residents of the tiny community. An intensive search was made for the 4 missing Marines with the help of the U.S. Coast Guard, but the bodies were never recovered. Immediately after the attack, the Bahamas sent a strongly worded note to Cuba protesting the grave violations of Bahamian sovereignty and international law, which resulted in the loss of lives of 4 Bahamian Marines and the reckless sinking of the Bahamian Defense Force craft while patrolling in Bahamian waters. As a result of initial talks between both governments, the Cuban government agreed to compensate the relatives of the 4 missing seamen. The amount of compensation to be agreed upon by both governments. They also agreed to make reparations for the loss of the Flamingo. Negotiations have been taking place between officials of both governments over the last 6 months on the question of the amount of compensation. The last formal conference took place in Havana on November 6th between Mr. Adderley, Dr. Pellegrin Torres de la Luz, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cuba, in pursuance of which the Cuban government made payment today, Friday, the External Affairs statement said. There is some doubt as to the actual value of the Flamingo, which was a 103-foot craft. Early reports indicated that the craft cost $4.5 million, but later during a news conference, Prime Minister Pinling placed an $8.5 million value on the Flamingo. And so those are the stories that came into the newspaper right after the sinking of the Flamingo, which then kind of told us about what was some of the events of the day and the government's posture. They wrote a heavily worded letter to the government of the Bahamas, sent to and they threatened to send it throughout the international community. The letter that they sent to Cuba. What was Cuba's mode and tone like?
But mind you now,
in the news, of course.
The relationship was always we were led to believe that they were enemies from the United States. Let's put it like that. That's the way it was brought to us. And as far as we are concerned, the Bahamians, we just take that as gospel.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we were all angry at that time because knowing the country, how peaceful we are, why did you do this to a small country like us? I mean, that was our thinking.
Yeah.
So we were all angry and upset, but that was just the expression that we had to.
You can give me a call. I'm joined in the studio by Arnold Wilson. He is my guest, a historian that has a very wonderful catalog of the incidents concerning that day. 323-623-2325, 4316-325-4259. You can give me a call. Good morning, call. You're on. Call, are you there?
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very, very impressed with your show. I've been following it ever since you came on. You're a fine young man doing well.
Thank you very much.
Now, what I have to say. In listening and thinking, I'm wondering, I'm not conscious that we have a Memorial Day, a real dedicated Country Memorial Day. Do we have one? I'm not sure.
Not that I am aware of. I think we have. There is one that's called Memorial Day, but that isn't for us. That is the one that they do where they dress up downtown and they go to the monument downtown in honor of all the soldiers that fought during the World Wars.
Well, we need a Bahamian one, I would think, a real one.
Well, that may be something worth considering.
We need to be thinking about something like that.
Definitely.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for calling.
Beautiful day.
You too. 323-623-232-54-316. Let me get a couple of these text messages out of the way. Someone here is telling me David Tucker was the gunner. Thank you so much. I couldn't remember. Good morning, Leyvon and guests. I think it would be a good thing to preserve what is left of the police station in Ragged Island as a monument and a memorial for the historical purpose in accordance with the event of HMBS Flamingo. Mr. Wilson accounts that it's been torn down already.
And also the last hurricane was there that destroyed the one where they built. If you see the photograph I showed you,
right?
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, it tear the roof and part of it.
Yeah.
But they actually break down the first one totally.
Wow.
They right to the ground, really. And that's why I said the only thing that's left is that wall, the tabby wall. And if you look at the old photo, you'll see that.
I see you have this one here. It says, "Oh Lordy, last words." It says the jets fired shots directly across the path of Flamingo. The court was told, so the captain hoisted the Bahamas national flag and radioed a message to Coral Harbor base as the circumstances at that time. The Flamingo and its crew continued towards Key Santo Domingo so as to properly search for the foreign vessels, but as the captain explained, we never arrived. On the second attack, Captain Rhodes said he counted 2 jets, but pointed out that the first attack was so unexpected that they weren't able to see any aircraft at all. After the second attack, he went to radio but found that he had lost communication. So he ordered that the crew abandon ship. Being the last person on board, he said he tried to put a fire out that was on the boat's bridge, but he was not successful as smoke fumes and fire was spreading everywhere. Captain Rhodes stated that he was afraid that the ship would explode, so he jumped overboard, and while swimming, another fighter passed over the ship, strafing her, adding that I had to dive for cover and my life raft was shot up. The Avon at the time, because of the jets overhead, was still shooting. Marine Seaman Whitfield Neely said he was on the Avon rescuing the men, and on taking Gregory Curry, a crew member, from the water, was told that Stirrup was in the back screaming for help. Neely said he, however, never saw or heard Stirrup. Curry, leading Marine, told of being in the water with Stirrup while both were swimming in the diesel fluid. He said he heard the able seaman cry out to him for help, but encouraged the seaman to swim. He said nothing seemed to be working for him then. The life raft did not inflate, and this seemed to be dragging me down. The emergency rope to pull the raft also refused to work. He said he decided to take it off, but it was too difficult. Curry said he had given up hopes because in addition to faulty raft, his chest had begun to hurt him, which he later learned was due to a wound. At this time, he shouted to Stirrup to catch up to his level, but he didn't see him as if he was getting any closer to me when I called for him. When rescue came for them, he said he looked around for Stirrup but saw no sign of him. On getting into the rescue dinghy, he again was faced with difficulty. His raft hooked to a point in the boat. He stated he got the raft because I was not a good swimmer. A radio message to Flamingo had been fired upon by a Cuban aircraft. Acting on this information and not being able to get further communications with the ship, he tried to contact the commander of the Defense Force, but it did not get to him. He thus contacted the permanent secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs and told them of the situation. He told the unsuccessful searches of the 4 men by the U.S. Coast Guard, police charter, and Defense Force personnel. In concluding the inquiry, Mr. Hall extended his condolences to the families of the 4. And so these are the days following. There's a picture here with all of them. I can identify for definite. A.K. Russell is in this picture, Leo Kirby for sure. And this is obviously Whitfield Neely that I can identify here readily. Let's take another phone call. Good morning, caller. You're on.
Leyvon.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
First time caller. Listen to your show every day.
Thank you.
Leyvon, this day is so solemn for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19 years old when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it in the hospital. I went to visit a friend who died the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got the news in the hospital, that was a solemn day. Like everyone, had died on that boat. That day was so solemn. We stand still and we salute. My God.
You were in hospital visiting a friend.
I was in the hospital to visit a friend who died the next day.
Wow. Did you hear it word of mouth or over broadcast?
Pardon me?
Did you hear about the story via word of mouth or over broadcast?
I heard it by word of mouth in the hospital. Everyone was sipping. And then we got the news that the defense force both went down. And I knew David Tucker. I knew him.
Okay.
And that day was, I could remember that fresh. Every Mother's Day, I remember that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Every Mother's Day.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Text right here says, good morning, Mr. Miller. Hope all is well. My father joined the Defense Force in 1979, and he was actually supposed to be on the Flamingo. When they came looking for my father to let him know when he has to go on the sea, he was not home at the time. So he takes this day seriously because he knew that it could have easily been one of those men, which means I wouldn't be here today either. Okay. Next text writer says, Leyvon, your guess, what does it say? This May 10th, because it seems to me that the political powers to be, for whatever reason, seem to deliberately and strategically ignore the importance of the historical day of the HMBS Flamingo. Text writer says, good morning, Mr. Miller. Is that a book you were reading from? If so, where can I purchase it? It is not a book. These are the keepsakes of one Mr. Arnold Wilson. Mr. Wilson, where can people find you if they're interested in actually having a look at? This is quite an impressive archive he has here. Where do people find you?
Well, I'm retired now, so I don't be between anymore. I don't be the wake. I don't be between anymore.
Right.
But I'm listening to the telephone directory.
Okay. Arnold Wilson in the telephone directory. Yeah. You can find Mr. Arnold Wilson in the telephone directory. And these are all clippings from 1980 in the wake of the Flamingo attack. The next text right here says, those Cuban men should have been left to rot in the Bahamas prison. I don't know whatever happened to them. Did we hand them back over to the Cuban government? Do you remember?
I really don't remember.
This
man, you saying that they paid for the vessel.
I think we gave them the prisoners back.
Exactly.
Yeah. This here says, the details you make pictographical. I am saddened. It is a great story. Thank you very much. This one here says, that's gibberish. Which year did it happen? 1980. This says, Mr. Curry is my neighbor. He's an awesome man. Yes, that is correct. Mr. Wilson, we're out of time. Thank you for coming. We appreciate this. This is delightful. There is a story that I want to look up that I can't seem to find on the internet. Mr. Scavala took over in 2006. And his first day in office as Commodore, he's quoted as saying, or the newspaper quotes him as saying, 250 Marines must go. I can't seem to find that anywhere, but I'm sure you'll have it. Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Wilson. Let us not ever forget the names. We will call them again as we go, because these are the names of the men that have given it all for country. They are Frederick Sturrup, able seaman; David Tucker, Marine seaman; Austin Smith, Marine seaman; Edward Williams, Marine seaman, among us; Petty Officer Peterson James, Denzel Clark, Gregory Curry, Willard Saunders, Oscar Miller, Trevor Sands, Whitfield Neely, Anthony Russell, Leo Kirby, John Wallace, Cladwell Farrington, Eugene Thompson, Anthony Allens, Wilfred Sands, and last but not least, the skipper of the ship, Captain Amish Roll. That's my time, you all. I'm Leyvon Miller. This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. It's your station for fresh news and smart talk. They've got the news, and it's next.